Okay, with that, I think we're going to turn now to audience questions, and we're no longer actually allowing anyone to use a microphone themselves. So if you ask the question, I have to repeat it for you. So let me go ahead and open the floor to questions, and if we get a Twitter eruption, which is a Twitter question, Carolyn will interrupt me. We have a question back there? So the question is, how are the energy companies reacting to some of the stuff, and especially the smart lighting that Mike was talking about?
It's an excellent question, and I'm a very blunt guy. But let me say, they have bigger problems to deal with. Okay, they are going to. It's not just lighting. They're gonna lose unless they change their business model, no matter what. And so the more enlightened ones are reacting extremely well. I mean, there are some that are very enlightened. And what I would say is, I'll use California as an example. The regulated utilities in California are acting remarkably well, right? In fact, California just passed Title 20 a couple of weeks ago, where they are actually going to not just regulate good light, but they're going to ban bad light, which is a beautiful thing, because if you knew when CFL came out, you have to ask yourself, why didn't CFL really take off? Because it actually is a very efficient light source, not as efficient as LED, but it's a very efficient light source. It can be very high quality, but what happened was the utilities being pushed to drive this efficiency into the home actually drove crappy light into the home. And when you drive crappy light into the home, consumers basically revolted, and revolted both against the light, the technology, and the utility. And I think California utilities have learned their lesson not to do that. So both the regulatory side and the utility side are working together to do the right thing. There are many parts of the country that, frankly, some of the utilities are just really bad, right? And you have to get consumer pull to force them in the right direction. But it's happening. It's happening pretty rapidly.
Great question, thanks. So the question is, which platform provider is going to emerge as the dominant platform that people start building on? Is that an inhibitor to the market?
From a house standpoint, that's the reason that we're an active member within the All-Scene Alliance. It's an open source interoperable platform. That's why we work with Key to make sure that we're future-proofing to the best that we can. But I think there's also some first mover opportunities for manufacturers. So the first HVAC system that demonstrate that it can interoperate and help with resource management within the home probably has a Nest type opportunity, and the first refrigerator, et cetera. So there's some marketing value to that. I agree with your wait and see. I think we have to drive it with user experiences so people say, I need that in my life now. And I think the data that can be shared with that consumer to make more informed decisions, it's probably not the best example, but when my son was very young, I was brushing my teeth one time, left the water running, and he said, okay, Dad, turn that off. And I said, I'm almost finished. He said, ruin the earth. And I think that's really the kind of mindset here of the data is going to drive people to make better decisions. Information is to make people make better decisions. So this convergence is coming from information. It's coming from an education platform, kids forcing it. But in the end, it's a platform for a better quality of life that it changes, the game changes when the cost is a little bit lower on a monthly basis. And the importance of the home is this: people qualify for a mortgage based on monthlies. And they usually justify what they can afford to buy based on monthlies. So it really is total cost of lifestyle per month that impacts this.
I totally appreciate the question, because on the hub side, on the consumer side, there are just so many hubs. As a consumer, which one do you pick? You know, that's just from the consumer side. But if you think about it from the device manufacturer side, like, you know, Hub has a smart lock, you know, smart lighting, smart this, smart that. Like, there are so many devices in there. if you're thinking like a device manufacturer, I'm focused on, say Mike is focused on lighting, somebody else is focused on locks and things like that. From their point of view, are they going to bet, on, their whole solution on the success of somebody else's hub? Probably not. They just want to make the best smart lock, and it should just work. As a lock, it should just work, and it should also be able to interoperate, if the use case calls for it. So that is why, from our vantage point, we are a platform. We are not a hub. We are a platform, right? People build their smart solutions on our platform. But what we see is that they are actually building these smart solutions so that they can work standalone. Instead of just being a lock, it has some additional features now. But they're also exposing APIs. They're making it easy for people to, build some interoperability, depending on what, where this is going to be deployed. So on the consumer side right now, because there is just so much attention on smart home, people are naturally thinking, oh, hub, smart home equals hub, But because of all the attention on that, the real thing that people should be paying attention to, I think, is kind of getting lost, which is value. What's the user experience? How does it improve, from what I already have to what they are giving me? Like, how are smart lights helping me? Instead of focusing about the use case, there's a lot about, okay, if I buy this hub, like, will I have these smart lights? Do they work well or not? If I like this smart lock from some other hub, obviously that's not going to work with this, and so on. I also want to address quickly one point that you mentioned about protocols as well. Like you mentioned Z-Wave, but there is Zigbee, there's Z-Wave, there are all kinds of protocols as well. Again, because our platform operates at multiple levels, at that level we see that this whole protocol fight is never going to settle. I mean, there are always going to be these protocols, and there are use cases that some protocol is optimal for, whereas other protocol is optimal for something else, and so on and so forth. So that's always going to be happening. But platforms like ours are facilitating building solutions without trying to dictate any protocol. Like let them choose depending on the use case, versus saying, hey, we are a hub and you got to do this. But we are not a hub. We're just a platform. You can build what you want and then make it available for others to do any solutions based on.
Yeah, and kind of point out, one of the things it's a really good question. It goes back into who will, to me, you asked a different form of who will win, which is one of our questions, because if you wanted to go through the litany of protocols and network layers and app layers and everything, and if we had to start talking 6 low pans and threads and weaves and Z-Waves and Zigbees and there's a reason that none of them are perfect, and the industry's kind of figuring that out, right? They evolved for different purposes, and now I look at that as actually a good thing. It's part of the insanity that's a good thing, because if there wasn't a need to fix the problem, then it's just a problem that we don't care about. So I kind of like that, but in the end, it is going to be, the winner of protocols and app standards is going to be whoever those 1 or 2 people are. I'm a firm believer that there's the law of twos. There's a reason there's, AT&T and Verizon and amusing third, right? And there's a reason there's Microsoft and Apple, and then figure out, right, what's beyond there. And when we figure out who the 2 are, they'll dictate what the technologies are that we use, and the whole world can then rally around, how do I enable an application and service, right? And I think the problem that we have right now is that hasn't been figured out, and you don't know the 2. We could all whisper who we think the 2 are, right? And you have the traditional, carriers going against, the OS people, and in the commercial side, you've got the networking people in there, and they all want 100% of the pie. And so this is no different than what we went through with getting to the iPhone. It's really, really no different. And the carrier world went through, hey, we had to do number portability because we all thought you were evil and we couldn't switch and that type of stuff. We have to get through that in the smart home and smart, even commercial side as well.
And also on the consumer side, who are the top two? I think that battle is being fought right now. Like, Apple, Google, Samsung, Amazon, these guys want to be there. But if you look at the commercial side, which is where like there's a lot of opportunity as well, there is never going to be like, like Apple and Google kind of a thing, because inherently, especially as you go higher up, like smart city kind of things, those involve so many different parts of the ecosystem that there's never going to be just like this or that, So yeah, that's something I wanted.
So probably no clear winner at this point, but probably will end up being about 2. Is that? Sure.
Yeah, I think we could say it's going to be about 2, and it's probably going to be where consumers already are touched right now. So you'd have to look at Google's and Apple's from an OS or an app side, right, or mobile device side. You'd have to look at AT&T and Verizon from you touch all 120 million or whatever homes in the U.S., right? So why would I or anyone else want to invest in trying to reach that many people and that scale, right? So the people that already have that scale are going to be the winners. I can't tell you which side of that it is, right? I always will encourage, because I love the carrier people, to be a little bit more visionary earlier in your life than later. But it will bode you well.
Or unless it's a new player.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Or unless it's a new player, exactly. Which is definitely possible here.
I think we've got a couple more questions. Yeah. Which ecosystem role is going to drive it? Which are the 2 that needs to happen in each of your spaces in order for this to happen?
Yeah, well, I mean, I can go I'm really brief here. It's going to be someone like House actually having a value proposition to us to say we're ready to basically put serious dollars into making even better connected devices. These are awesome, and whoever gets them, you're lucky. But we have lots of things that we can do. And once I know what to develop for, and whether it's so distribution to a critical mass, and right, when I appreciate the question, because the critical mass doesn't have to be an Apple critical mass, right? And even in the early days, we were talking about the BlackBerry thing. BlackBerry didn't reach everyone, but it had a nice critical mass. And if you talk to your analysts, and they'll say you get to 5%, 10% in that range of adoption of something, not everything, and that can make a big difference. So I want to know who will drive. I sell to customers. I'm not going to sell directly, really. I will sell directly, but I want to sell through someone that enables an experience like a House.
I think it's the home, if we're focusing on the home, is such a unique experience. It's different from anything else because it's where people program their lifestyle. And if you look at Google, if Google knows what I'm going to type before I know what I'm going to type, not sure I want that in my home. So there are concerns like that are out there. So, and I think that when you start looking at brands or companies, people, when they think of AT&T, they think of something. When they think of electric utility, they think of something. So I think there is an opportunity for a new player to emerge. I think it's a little bit like herding goldfish too, that this is a convergence from so many different manufacturers. People, they don't care who their HVAC company is, but they care about comfort. And then secondarily, they may care about the efficiency of it, but they really care about comfort. But so it's a lot of moving pieces. I know I'm not answering your question, but it is about maybe a new order.
As for which 2 things will, help us succeed, I'll answer this from 2 different points of view, right? As a platform company, if you go to our website also, you'll see there's platform, there's ecosystem. Because, building stuff is one thing, but actually distributing and going to market with your stuff in the right channel is a whole another thing. So apart from platform, we also focus on ecosystem. So we co-created an ecosystem called Space, iotspace.org. And the whole idea there is to take devices and device-based solutions from device manufacturers to channel, and the channel being carriers and retailers. Because carriers, I mean, obviously they don't want to be just pipes, you know, they want to actually monetize IoT. And again, going back to the recurring revenue and monthly payments, you know, they want to monetize IoT with this recurring revenue model. So, and they want to be able to pick device solutions from different manufacturers, you know. So, so ecosystem, I think, is super important. So at least from Key's point of view, we think, you know, platform is important because you have to build stuff, and we enable that. But equally important is the go-to-market ecosystem piece. Now, if you think about it from a device manufacturer point of view, again, like, do I build like just the best user experience and best value solution, or you know, I try to figure out like what will work best with Nest or you know, or some other kind of hub or whatever. Instead of doing that, like they have to think about what is the best experience for my user. And like, where are these users? What's the best channel? So from device manufacturer point of view, also platform and ecosystem are equally important. And that is why, you know, as a platform company, that's our focus.
How do these companies react to the large traditional players that are entering the space? Who do you need to watch in order for this to be successful?
I'll respond to AWS in particular. We, in our platform is at a sort of like, think of it as a PaaS layer, like platform as a service layer. So we actually run on AWS, okay? So if you compare like Key with AWS, think of it as Key providing like a platform on which you build. And the platform is like really solid, like, you know, everything is there, like it's like the base of a car, you know. Whereas AWS is, it gives you all the parts that you need, and you got to do the plumbing, you got to hook them up, you know. That's one thing. The other thing is, you know, a lot of customers want flexibility depending on the use case. For some, they want to run on public cloud. Some want to run on private deployment. They have their center. So they want flexibility. So from a platform perspective, architecturally, we support that, right? So we support public deployment, you know, dedicated deployment, private deployment on your own data center. So especially on the IoT side, the bigger these initiatives, the more flexibility they want. So AWS is not an instant answer for a lot of them. And third reason is there is, from an IoT ecosystem point of view, if you think about it, there's a ton of stuff going on in Asia. Especially in China, there's a lot of stuff going on. And if you're a Chinese device manufacturer or solution provider who want to enter the US market, or like a US manufacturer wanting to go to China to capitalize on, like, you know, the Chinese market, you don't want to rebuild your solutions. You just want to code to one API or one platform, and it should just work. And it's nice because with our solution, we run on AWS worldwide, but in China, we run on Alibaba, you know? So if you're coding to us, like, you know, you're a device manufacturer or IoT solution guy in Atlanta, you can go to China. You don't have to make any changes. It just happens to be running on Alibaba over there. Likewise, you know, there are lots of Chinese solutions wanting to come to the US market. They don't have to change a thing. It'll just run on Amazon. So, you know, that's our thinking. I think the value is really in creating the platform and bringing these, like, whether it is users, data, devices, analytics, all these things, they have to be easy to use, so at the API level, as opposed to giving you very low level but flexible bunch of things and saying, put together your car from this, you know, 20,000 parts, you know.
Yeah. And thank you very much for the question. It's one of the things that we can feel really proud of. I'm going to give you a little background on it. We really don't spend a lot of time focusing on GE and Philips. If we did, we'd be behind. We actually drive them more than they drive us, and if you ask them in a private moment, they would tell you the same thing. In 2008, we didn't have a lighting business. We were an LED component supplier that were telling GEs and Philips and Toshibas and and Panasonic and Samsung what they should do to be successful in their lighting businesses. And it wasn't until they were not listening that we just said, in the major league moment where he goes, screw Joe Boo, I'll just do it myself. And that's basically what we did. In 2008, we had no revenue in lighting. Now we're a $1 billion lighting company and as big as most of them. So we don't spend a lot of time there. Even in our bulb business, we launched a bulb in March of 2013. It took 9 months for us to say, screw it, we're going to do it ourselves, to the time that we had actually made a bulb, sold it in 2,000 Home Depot stores, got the relationship with Home Depot, built a factory in the US, and started selling a consumer product for the first time in our life. In the next 9 months, we had 5 different versions of that product. So we don't spend a lot of time looking. You have to eat your own young, rather than trying to find other old to eat, right?
And in-house, we look at, it's really co-opetition and not as much like frenemies, more like competition, co-opetition, friendly, doing business with everyone. And we look at everyone as a potential competitor and potential ally.
How does Cisco's acquisition of Jasper impact this marketplace?
That's your last question.
Okay. No Twitteruptions.
This is a great question and very apt, like for us, because Cisco recently invested in Key. So we get asked this question a lot. So, hey, Cisco invested in you and they acquired Jasper, so what does this mean? So from my point of view, it's a very complementary kind of situation, like where Jasper is and where we are, 2 different levels, and both levels are needed. For example, like Jasper's focus on connectivity management, SIM provisioning, and like at the device level, and connectivity management at the cloud layer. In many whether it is industrial, IoT, or like logistics, or like smart city, many situations where there are many devices to manage, hugely important. And we don't focus on that at all. Like from our point of view, how that happens is someone else's business, and that's Jasper's. And what we focus on is actually the building of the solution part. So once you build a solution which consists of all these like millions of devices, how those millions of devices, the connectivity is managed is Jasper's problem to solve. And how the solution is built with users, data, devices, analytics, that's our problem to solve. So that's how I answer that question, because like I said, everyone is asking that question to us. And just on a macro level, Jasper's acquisition, I think by Cisco, just makes a lot of sense, because that's an indicator of like how important they feel. Like if Cisco feels that, okay, connectivity management and provisioning, things like this are real and they need a solution, it only means that like the types of IoT solutions are getting bigger and bigger, which is great for the industry.
Yeah, and I will just say that, kind of going in the back of the room question before, with Cisco, this is a good thing. The acquisition of Jasper, the investment in Key, is a very good thing. They're focused on this area. I almost wasn't even going to say it, but yesterday we actually announced a partnership with Cisco on launching Power over Ethernet lights. And so they're doing a lot in this space to bring IoT to the commercial environment. And one of the important things about Power over Ethernet lights is literally, at least in new construction, we pair our SmartCast lighting system with their Power over Ethernet capability, and now you have an entire infrastructure, this ecosystem, enabled simply on the savings that is generated from light. And then with Key and Jasper there, and Cisco and their switches and routers, they actually can then, that is the ecosystem. It goes back, that is the ecosystem in a commercial environment, with someone that can scale to 70–80% of the market in our area, and the capability that they're bringing on in partnerships and investment. and the infrastructure that we can have paid for, they're setting themselves up to enable IoT in a very profound and real way throughout the world, but in our case, North America.
Great. I think that's all the time we have for questions and panel discussion. Thanks to all the panelists.